So I'm Rebecca Rowe from the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. So I'll go to my start slide. So I'm talking about some work we've been doing with the University of Barajaya, which I'll probably refer to as UB for most of the talk, developing a research platform improving economic and ecological performance for smallholder coffee farmers, and this is in Java in Indonesia. This is part of the Sunrise project, which is a £7 million ODA project. We've got projects in Indonesia, Malaysia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and China, and I think that's it. I'll get told off if I miss one. So we're working with the University of Barajaya. So in 2016, they got given or donated by the government a 544 hectare ex-government production forest. And so this is located just outside Malang, which is on the slopes of Stratigraphic, so Mount Uchuna, I think is the pronunciation. So it's one of those deep volcanic soils. It looks, they're hugely deep soil. So what's happened is they have, this production forest is a combination of pine and mahogany, and it's underplanted with coffee and seasonal crops that's managed by tenant farmers. The forest area itself includes 4 villages and 58 households. And basically with UB, so with the university, we're co-developing a research platform to look at ways to improve tenant farmer incomes and ecosystem service delivery from the forest as a whole. So just saying, it's had quite a change in management, so it's probably worth going over this. So initially, the area is mainly pine with some mahogany, and the pine forest has been used for tapping originally. So they tap the pine, take off a resin, which is used to produce turpentine, so it's a resin and perfume goes into various things. They basically do that by cutting holes in the side of the tree. And then the farmers are paid to do that by the government, so they basically had a job to tap an area of pine. By tapping, they then have the right to underplant with coffee. So they're really almost employed initially, and then they farm as their sort of own income from the work they're doing for the government for the tapping. However, when the university took over, it became quite clear the tree yields were dropping off for the tapping as the pine was getting older. The farmers were struggling to meet any targets, so they basically, and the trees themselves were getting incredibly sick. So the university temporarily stopped the tapping, and the farmers are now focusing on the coffee production. So what the university has done is they set up numerous farmers groups in collaboration with these farmers. They're looking to develop UB coffee, which is, you can just see the sign down the bottom. So they're putting in infrastructure within the forest to develop the coffee. So that's to bring it in, to process it, and to produce a ground coffee for sale. And they're paying the farmers a premium for selling their coffee to them. Some of the farmers are still going, some of the registered organics, so they're still going down their own routes. But if they want to, they can get a premium by working with the university. So what the university wanted to do, and we've been having many discussions with this, so we started this year before last, and we're running to 2020 for this part of the project. So they're looking at developing a 10 to 20 year project, looking at the whole system. So they want to go from land use system characterization, looking at ecosystem function, ecosystem services, looking for management trade-offs, and then looking at sort of the ecology and the ecosystem and that policy dialogue. They've got inputs from the social science department, from the law department. They're making new contracts for the farmers. So they're doing a whole system, and we're helping with bits of this within the Sunrise project. So there's 2 things we're really working on that I'm going to go through today, and this is really an introduction to our work. So the first, this is modelling work. So this is Alice Finch at CH Bang has been doing this. So what we're looking at doing is taking some of the data they have already. So they've done an awful lot of work on soil types and above ground carbon, tree species. We'll do additional work on rooting depth, water infiltration. And we're taking that and we're combining it with vegetation indices, land cover maps, elevation. We're even looking at pulling in Strava, which is a running app to look at people's usage of the area for mountain biking and running, which is also done there. Bringing that together and then parameterizing a set of ecosystem models. So probably things like a vest and swap, which I don't know much about, but apparently give you all sorts of outputs. And this is a strong collaboration. So we're working with a GIS team in the University of Barajaya. And then we're looking at outputting things on ecosystem implications, so yields, carbon storage. water, nutrient retention, and then the map I've got on the example is, this is the first pass that Alice has done, so you can just see the outline of the forest, and what she's looking is at nutrient retention by the soil. So this is nutrient loading to rivers. So this is taking some of their data on the soil types and some of the data on the above ground biomass and combining it to give us this sort of data. This is what we're hoping to improve, so we can do this at a much greater scale. And the idea is that we can scale this in two ways. So around the volcanoes, there's a pine band, which is the Forestry Commission for Indonesia has sort of set out as an area where they consider to be useful for pine forestry. So we want to look at what would happen if we expand our models over that sort of area in terms of the impact. The university is also very keen at looking at catchment scale effects. So this is the, I've forgotten the name of the river now, but there's a river running down through, the catchment's running down towards bottom of Lang, and they're interested in looking whether we can look at the implications for the catchment of whole. So again, nutrient leaching, soil erosion, soil health, as well as the yield and the impact to the farmers. The other thing we're doing, which we're hopefully going out in October to start doing some extra work on, is looking at canopy thinning. So, as I mentioned, these forests were originally designed for tapping, therefore they've been planted at quite high density. But the coffee farmers, this is in discussion with them, this isn't being opposed to them, they're quite keen to reduce some of the canopy cover to get more light to the coffee, so they get a better yield, but they maintain the quality, because shade coffee has a higher quality than sun coffee, which is why they want the shade. So the idea is we'll go for a system where we'll trim out some of the canopy, and then we'll look at the impact on a whole suite of things. That includes the yield of the coffee, things like the microclimate, so light interception, shade cover, water infiltration, below and above ground biodiversity, rooting depth, nutrient availability within those soils, health of the coffee. And the idea, carbon cycling as well, so probably some greenhouse gas work, and then some carbon cycling work within the soil itself. So this is like a suite of measurements we want to do. And then the idea is we'll do that in an experiment. So we're going to take the 20-year-old pine, we're going to do a 40 and 60% shade reduction, basically, so 40% shade, 60% shade. Have a rep system, so they've just been out selecting sites for us recently, and then we'll do a trimmed and untrimmed canopy comparison. So you get the sort of thing at the bottom. The things we've been doing a lot of, so our last trip out there, so me and Simon and my colleagues went out, and we've been taking out a load of our sensors because they have the knowledge, they don't have the facilities necessarily. So loads of soil moisture probes, PAR sensors, air and soil temperatures, humidity measurements, so that we can train them up in the use of those, so that we can get extra data and we can both benefit from that. They've also got a grass chromatograph there, which they were upgrading, so they can do incubation studies to look at impacts on soils or different amendments or other experiments they might want to run to look at long-term sustainability questions. We've been taking lots of notes, we've learned an awful lot. And this is a real collaboration, so obviously this is ongoing work that hopefully I'll be able to come back and tell you more about when we've got some actual results. But this is really an introduction. It's really just to acknowledge that this is all down to the staff and the students at the University of Brawijaya, the Forest Farmers Community Group. So they have 3 regions across the farm. These people are grouped together, and they each have a coordinator, and it's those people that are really helping us to get into the field sites and to do the measurements. The European Embassy, the Indonesian Embassy, who are amazingly fast, and obviously NERC for the funding. So it's a quick introduction for today.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks, Rebecca. Exciting stuff.